Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
What Karen didn't know was that I'd already built a backup plan to take her down if she tried to ruin me. I woke up to the sound of silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that wraps around you like a warning. The other side of the bed was cold. I reached over, still half asleep, thinking maybe Karen was in the bathroom. She wasn't. Then my phone lit up. One notification, then another, then another. By the time I sat up, I had over a dozen alerts from the bank. Joint checking, $0. Credit card declined. Overdraft attempt, denied. I just sat there, phone in one hand, staring at the wall. I didn't even feel shocked. It was like getting punched after you've seen the fist coming for weeks. Months, really. I got up, barefoot on the cold floor, and walked to the kitchen. On the fridge, there it was. A yellow sticky note in Karen's tight little handwriting. Goodbye. I never loved you anyway. That was it. No explanation. Just sharp, cold, and final. I stood there in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the note, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. My eyes drifted to the drawer next to the stove. That's where I kept the binder. My just-in-case file. She never knew about it. I'd seen the signs. The late-night calls she'd try to take outside. The perfume she never wore before. The sudden interest in our retirement account. Karen wasn't slick. She just thought I was too dumb or too soft to notice. But I'd been watching. Tracking expenses, flagging receipts. I'd even put a GPS tag on the SUV when I noticed weird mileage. She'd been pulling cash advances from our cards and transferring money into a new account. All without knowing I'd been quietly rerouting funds to an account in my name only for months. I didn't know what she was planning exactly, but I knew she was planning something. And now she was gone. Bags packed. Money drained. My life turned upside down. But she had no idea I'd been preparing. That I already had enough evidence to scorch the earth if I needed to. And what she really didn't know? She wasn't just running off with someone else. She was running a scam. In my name. And I was about to find out just how far she'd gone. 3 months before she vanished, Karen started acting different. It began with the little things. Quiet phone calls she'd take out on the porch, claiming it was her sister or someone from yoga class, but never putting them on speaker. She'd end those calls with a strange smile, one I hadn't seen in years, and then come back inside humming like everything was perfect. Then came the new clothes. Sleek black dresses, designer bags, a fancy pair of boots she swore were on sale. But the tag said otherwise. I asked once just to see what she'd say. She kissed my cheek and said, "Oh, babe, don't worry, I still use coupons." Like that made any kind of sense. But the real shift came when she started asking about my business. "So how much do you usually bring in each quarter?" she asked one night over dinner, real casual. "Like, before taxes?" I looked up from my plate. "Why?" She shrugged. "Just thinking about retirement planning. I mean, we're not getting any younger. I've been running my own construction company for over 20 years. I know when someone's lying. The hesitation in their tone, the way they touch their hair, their eyes darting a little too fast." Karen was smiling too hard, leaning too close. Something was off. Later that week, she started talking about our life insurance policies, then the 401k, then the value of our property, all in the same sugary tone, like it was some cute pillow talk. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just listened. And I started digging. That night, after she fell asleep, I got up and logged into our bank accounts. And that's when I saw the first red flag. A $2,300 wire transfer to a name I didn't recognize. Then a series of cash advances, 3 in 2 weeks, all at random ATMs. Charges for restaurants in Jacksonville, places I'd never been and wasn't invited to. A $600 charge at a hotel that wasn't in our city. Karen hadn't mentioned any business trips. She was a part-time yoga instructor. What kind of yoga retreat serves steak and $90 wine? I kept my mouth shut. I didn't ask questions. I knew better than to spook her. Instead, I opened a new savings account under my business name, one she didn't know existed. I started moving money there bit by bit. Every deposit I got from a job, I took a small cut and transferred it. I kept the old account active so she wouldn't notice the difference. Meanwhile, I started taking photos of receipts, screenshots of transactions, anything that seemed off. I labeled a folder on my laptop Home Repairs, just in case she ever snooped. One day, I stopped by the bank to finalize some paperwork. My buddy Greg, who I've known since high school, still worked there. He pulled me aside. "Hey," he said, lowering his voice. "Not to stick my nose in, but Karen's name popped up in a flagged transaction last week. Nothing definite, but it's part of a bigger fraud pattern we've been tracking." I froze. "What kind of fraud?" "Identity stuff. Wire scams. It's probably nothing, but you might want to be careful." I thanked him, walked out like everything was fine, then sat in my truck and stared at the dashboard for a full 10 minutes. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just infidelity. This wasn't a fling or some midlife crisis. Karen was working a setup, and I wasn't the first. I was just the next in line. I drove home that night with one thing on my mind: collect proof. Because she might have thought I was dumb enough to fall for her act, but she had no idea I was already building a case to make sure she never got away with it. My office turned into a damn war room. I cleared the drafting table, rolled out clean sheets of paper, and labeled a 3-ring binder in red marker, Plan B. Every receipt, every suspicious charge, every wire transfer I hadn't authorized, I printed it all out and filed it, section by section. Restaurant bills, hotel stays, ATM withdrawals, even a few credit card applications I didn't remember filling out. The details told the story better than Karen ever could. There was a $5,000 payment to something called Merit Bay Holdings in Miami. I looked it up. A luxury condo building right near the water. I'd never been there. I didn't even know she liked Miami. When I asked Karen casually about it a few days later, she said she was looking at yoga retreats for women's health. Sounded noble enough, but the dates didn't line up. And besides, the Merit Bay listing wasn't some spa or holistic camp. It was a $3 million tower full of glass walls and ocean views. So I called my best friend Nick. He's a retired cop who never really retired. He just quit getting paid for what he does. "I need a second set of eyes," I told him. We met at my shop after hours. I laid everything out. Financials, screenshots, a few photos I'd taken of Karen's new overnight bag she kept stashed in the trunk of her car. Nick flipped through the files slowly, then leaned back and let out a low whistle. "She's not just stepping out on you," he said. "This feels layered." That's the word he used. Layered. And he was right. Nick ran her plates. I figured we might find some parking tickets, maybe a traffic cam shot of her car in Miami. What he found was worse. She'd been to a Holiday Inn in Jacksonville twice in the same week. Same car, same tag. The first time on a Wednesday night, the second time that Sunday. Nick pulled the footage from a buddy who worked hotel security. It showed Karen walking into the bar, dressed sharp, meeting a man in a blazer who hugged her like he knew her. Not a fling, not a stranger, a partner. I didn't recognize the guy at first. Salt and pepper hair, mid-40s, clean cut, the type who wore cologne that costs more than a truck payment. "You know who that is?" Nick asked, tapping the screen. I shook my head. "No clue." Nick zoomed in, then pulled out his phone and texted someone. 10 minutes later, we had a name. Darren Willis. Except Darren Willis didn't exist. Not really. It was an alias. His real name was Dean Walker. Career scammer. Multiple fraud charges in Georgia, Florida, South Carolina. Real smooth talker. Real ghost. Nick looked at me and said, "Brace yourself. She's not just cheating on you. She's working with him." That hit harder than anything else so far. I sat down, slow, like the air got knocked out of me. "I figured she was sneaky," I said. "I didn't think she was dangerous." Nick gave me a look. "You don't drain accounts and set up shadow credit cards for romance. She's not trying to leave you. She's trying to rob you clean and disappear." I didn't sleep that night. I stayed in the office, looking over the files again and again. The Miami payments. The late-night transfers. The lies she fed me over takeout and small talk. She thought I was just another clueless husband who wouldn't notice until it was too late. But what she didn't know was that I had friends, I had records, and I had time. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to build a case so tight she'd choke on it. And when the day came, I was going to make sure she and Dean both got what they deserved. In court. Nick dug into the guy's record the way only an old cop could. Slow, careful, and relentless. Dean Walker. That was his real name. Born in Indiana, raised in Florida, and wanted in 3 states for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to defraud. He had aliases in Georgia, the Carolinas, and Louisiana. Darren Willis, Jeff Palmer, Leon Ricks, and he had a reputation for preying on wealthy women and lonely businessmen. Nick dropped the report on my workbench. "He's a ghost," he said. "Never stays in one place more than 6 months, but he's good at finding partners. Women, mostly. Charismatic ones." I flipped through the pages. Karen's name was already burned into the paper in my head, but there it was in black and white. 2 previous addresses linked to Dean, one in Tampa, one in Jacksonville. Guess who else had lived at both? That's when the rage stopped being vague. It sharpened. Karen had done this before. She wasn't new to the game. I was just the latest player. "Check this out," Nick said, pulling up a mugshot on his phone. It was grainy and a few years old, but the woman in it was Karen, all right. Her hair was darker. She looked 10 pounds lighter and a few shades meaner, but it was her. The booking name was listed as Carrie Dalton, charged with felony credit card fraud. The charges were dropped. Lack of evidence. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She'd stood next to me at our wedding, smiled in family photos, helped pick out tile for the kitchen remodel, and the whole time, she had this secret life stashed away like a suitcase under the bed. Nick tapped another photo. Recognize her? At first, I didn't. Then it hit me. The woman in the picture was Jenna, the so-called sister Karen had introduced me to at our wedding. Said she was family, even helped pour champagne at the reception. "She's not her sister," Nick said. "Her real name's Jenna Walker, Dean's cousin." I felt my stomach drop. We were in deep. This wasn't a love affair gone wrong. This was a full-blown con. Karen and Dean, and apparently Jenna, had done this before. They'd targeted other men, built fake relationships, siphoned off money through shell companies, then vanished like smoke. And they were about to do it to me. I needed help, not just to stop them, but to hit back. That's when I found Alan. He was from Jacksonville, just like Karen's so-called retreat weekends. I reached out through a mutual contact, and when I told him Karen's full name, he didn't even hesitate. "Karen Dalton?" he said. "Yeah, she wrecked my damn life." We met halfway in Brunswick. Alan looked like he'd aged 20 years in the last 5. His hands shook a little when he passed me a flash drive full of files, bank records, texts, even a blurry photo of Dean and Karen in front of a Mercedes they bought with Alan's money. "They left me with nothing," he said. "Emptied my retirement, defaulted my credit cards. I had to move in with my brother for 6 months. I wanted to disappear." I slid my folder across the table. He opened it. After a few minutes, he looked up. Same playbook. We sat there in silence for a moment. 2 guys who'd both been lied to, stolen from, humiliated. Then Alan grinned for the first time. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" "Yeah," I said. "Time to take the bastards down." Nick, Alan, and I met the next week in my shop office. We laid out every piece of evidence across the table. 3 timelines, 3 victim profiles, 1 pattern. Karen and Dean didn't just scam, they orchestrated. Fake businesses, fake emergencies, fake paper trails. But the worst part came last. Nick dropped a manila envelope in front of me. "You're not gonna like this," he warned. Inside were copies of forms submitted to the county recorder. One of them was a quitclaim deed, transferring ownership of my business property to Karen Dalton, signature forged, notarized by someone I'd never heard of. She was planning to take my shop, the land, the building, everything I'd built for 20 years. They were going for the kill shot. I stood up, hands clenched. "No," I said. "Not this time." We weren't victims anymore. We were done watching. And we were going to flip the script on every last one of them. It started with a text I almost didn't answer. Karen, can we talk? I made a mistake. I stared at the screen for a full minute, then typed back 2 words. Name the place. She picked a trendy little coffee shop across town. Somewhere public, somewhere quiet. I arrived early, sat at a corner table and waited. My folder was on the seat beside me. Inside, everything. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked frazzled, hair pulled into a loose bun like she hadn't slept in days. She spotted me, offered a sheepish smile, and sat across from me without a word. I didn't say anything either. Let her start. After a long sip of whatever chai mocha smoothie nonsense she'd ordered, she finally spoke. I shouldn't have left like that, she said softly. I panicked. Things got out of control. 30 grand worth of panic? I asked flatly. She blinked. What? That's the number you drained after you ghosted. Cash advances, fake accounts, hotel bills. It adds up fast. She shifted in her seat. Look, I didn't mean for it to go that far. Dean? He told me it was a short-term investment thing. I didn't think... Dean, I said, watching her flinch. So you're still calling him that? Karen looked down at her hands. I was stupid, okay? I got in over my head. I raised an eyebrow. You forged a deed transfer on my property, Karen. That's not stupid. That's premeditated. She didn't deny it, just sighed. I thought we could talk like adults, maybe work something out. Oh, we're doing that, I said. Then I reached into the seat beside me and slid the folder across the table. She stared at it like it might bite her. What is this? Proof. Every wire transfer. Every shell company. Every text between you and Dean. Even the notarized forgery you tried to pass through the county office. Her hand shook as she opened the folder. She flipped through the first few pages. Her face went white. Where did you get this? I leaned back in my chair. You remember Nick, don't you? The quiet guy at our 4th of July BBQ. He's retired law enforcement. He helped me dig. And Alan, the man you conned in Jacksonville, he helped too. She opened her mouth to say something, but I held up a finger. Before she could get a word out, 2 men entered the cafe. Plain clothes, quiet, no drama. They walked straight to our table and flashed badges. Karen Dalton? One of them asked. She turned to them slowly like she was underwater. Yes? You're under investigation for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to defraud. We'll need you to come with us. Karen looked at me. You set me up? No, I said calmly. I gave you the chance to run. You took it. Now you're going to take this too. The agents cuffed her without a fight. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just stood and stared at me like she couldn't believe it. She didn't understand yet, not until she saw what I had waiting outside. As the agents walked her out the front door, I caught sight of Dean's pickup truck parked across the street. He was behind the wheel, wearing sunglasses like some wannabe spy. The second he saw the agents, he peeled out, tires squealing, vanishing down the block. The investigators didn't bother chasing. They already had eyes on him. Karen was halfway to the cruiser when she finally turned and looked at me. Her mouth opened like she was going to say something. Plead, maybe. But she didn't get the chance. The door shut behind her. I sat there a while longer, finishing my coffee. When I finally stood, I left the folder on the table. Let the next guy know, don't underestimate the quiet ones. We're the ones who watch, the ones who prepare, the ones who finish it. It didn't take long after Karen's arrest for the rest of the crew to start circling. The first text came 3 days later. No name, no number. Nice house. Shame if something happened to it. Attached was a blurry photo of my front porch, taken at night. Motion light barely catching the edge of the welcome mat. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the reply button, then locked the phone and went outside. I checked every camera angle, every sensor. All systems running, all backups secure. I didn't panic. I reinforced. 2 days after that, someone left a tire iron on the hood of my truck. No note. Just a message only a certain kind of scumbag would send. That night, I heard a noise in the workshop out back. Faint, like something brushing against the side door. I didn't investigate. I watched the footage from inside. 2 people, hooded, 1 male, 1 female. One of them tried the lock. The other whispered something and flashed a light through the window. I called Alan. "You're not going to believe this," he said before I could even speak. "Jenna just broke into my office. She was looking for files. Asked one of my interns where we kept hard drives. She said she was from the state office. I mean, she had a fake badge and everything." "You call it in?" "Already did. But if she shows up near you, she already has," I said. I didn't wait. I called the cops and handed over the footage. They opened a case. I upgraded every camera to real-time cellular upload and hid 2 extra microphones in the ceiling joists. Next time they came back, they'd be walking straight into a trap. And they did. 3 nights later, around 1 a.m., I got the alert. Motion detected in the workshop. I pulled the feed up on my phone. There they were. Jenna and a guy I hadn't seen before. Tall, broad, hoodie pulled tight. They moved fast, flipping through drawers, digging through bins, thinking they had time. They didn't. 2 patrol cars showed up 5 minutes later, sirens off, silent. I watched from my bedroom window as red and blue lights lit up the driveway. Jenna tried to run. The guy, later ID'd as Carl Ruiz, a known enforcer for Dean, threw something at the officer and bolted behind the fence. Didn't matter. They were both cuffed before the dog even finished barking. Watching them get shoved into the back of a cruiser, I felt something click inside me. Not revenge, not even relief, just control. I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't reacting. I was the one setting the bait now. The next morning, a federal agent, Agent Price, called me directly. "We've been following Dean Walker's network for years," he said. "This helps a lot." I told him what I had, everything from Alan and Nick, plus the surveillance footage from that night. Price paused. "You might want to sit down," he said. "Dean's been using your company's name. He filed articles of incorporation under your identity. New branch in Tampa. He's pitching fake bids and laundering through a construction shell." I closed my eyes. "He's still operating?" "For now," Price said, "but not for long." I hung up and sat in the workshop. I looked around, the sawdust, the tools, the smell of real work, and thought about everything they tried to take. Karen was in custody. Jenna was in custody. Carl was in custody. But Dean was still out there, and he was getting desperate, which meant he was going to make a mistake. And when he did, I'd be ready. The courtroom was colder than I expected, not in temperature, but in tone, like the air itself didn't want to forgive what these 2 had done. It had been 8 months since Karen left that note on the fridge. 8 months since the bank alerts, the folder, the sting, and now we were here. Savannah Superior Court. Judge Reynolds presiding. One of those old-school, no-nonsense types who didn't tolerate games or theatrics. Karen sat to the left, wearing a beige suit that probably came from the county jail's closet. Her hair was pulled back, her face gaunt. Dean was next to her, shackled and expressionless, like this was just another Tuesday for him. Maybe it was. Nick sat behind me. Alan was 2 rows over with his attorney. We weren't just witnesses. We were the last men standing in a long list of people Karen and Dean had tried to destroy. The prosecutor called me first. I walked to the stand and raised my right hand, swore to tell the truth. Then I told it. I laid it all out, from the fake yoga retreats to the forged deed transfer. I explained how Karen used our marriage to gain access to my finances, how Dean posed as her business associate, how they moved money between shell companies like it was nothing more than monopoly cash. I showed the court receipts, texts, emails, even the surveillance footage of Jenna and Carl breaking into my shop. I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I just delivered the facts. Alan followed. His story echoed mine almost line for line. Same pattern, different city. Karen and Dean had wiped out his retirement, sold his car behind his back, and left him with debt collectors calling for 6 months straight. Then came Nick. He didn't just talk as a friend, he spoke as a retired cop, someone who'd seen con artists before and knew exactly how they operated. He connected the dots between Karen, Dean, Jenna, and Carl, painting the full picture. A calculated professional scam ring built on lies, greed, and manipulation. Dean stared at the floor the whole time. Karen stared at me, not with hatred, not even regret. Just disbelief, like she couldn't fathom how I'd pulled it off, like she still thought she was smarter than me. When the judge read the sentence, I didn't smile. Karen, 15 years for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Dean, 20, with no chance of parole before 10. As the bailiffs moved in to take them away, Karen turned one last time. Her lips parted like she was going to say something, but I held her gaze, steady and silent until she looked away. I stepped outside into the sunlight, Nick beside me. "You good?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think I am." Alan joined us, shaking my hand with both of his. "You saved my life, man." "No," I said. "We saved each other." We stood there for a moment, the three of us, a contractor, a cop, and a former mark, united by betrayal, but bound by survival. I'd gone to that courtroom to close a chapter, but something else opened that day. As I walked back to my truck, I got a call from Agent Price. "We've been reviewing the evidence you collected," he said. "You ever thought about consulting? There's a lot of folks out there who could use your kind of experience." I let that sit a second. Then I smiled. Maybe I wasn't just the guy who got scammed. Maybe I was the guy who could stop it from happening to someone else. I sold the house not long after the trial ended. Too many ghosts in those walls. Too many mornings spent staring at the coffee pot, wondering if the life I thought I had ever really existed. I didn't need the square footage or the granite countertops anymore. What I needed was space. Not physical, but mental. So I moved into a modest place near the river. 2 bedrooms, quiet neighbors, a view of the water that changed with the sky. I'd never been much for reflection, but I found myself sitting out back most evenings, watching the boats drift by, just breathing. That used to feel like a luxury. Alan and I partnered up a few months later. We started a consulting firm for guys who'd been through the same hell. Financial scams, fraudulent divorces, fake relationships with real consequences. He handled logistics and outreach. I handled strategy and asset recovery. We weren't lawyers. We weren't cops. But we knew what predators looked like. We knew how they talked, how they moved, how they smiled while stealing everything you had. Turns out there were a lot more Karens and Deans out there than we ever imagined. Our first big case involved a woman running a romance and real estate scam in Florida. She'd marry men, convince them to buy vacation homes, and then vanish with the deed. It was damn near poetic. We helped her last victim freeze the transfer before it finalized, saving him over $200,000. Word spread. By the end of the year, we had 6 clients and a waiting list. It wasn't just about the money. It was about helping men get their dignity back, the part no bank statement could measure. My grown kids, Evan and Rachel, started calling more. At first it was just polite check-ins, but over time, the calls got warmer. They saw I'd fought back. They saw I didn't fall apart. I think, for the first time, they saw me as more than just Dad the contractor. They saw resilience. One night, Rachel brought over dinner. We sat on the back deck eating fried catfish and laughing about my terrible attempts at making homemade coleslaw. It felt good, real, like life had reset. And then, last week, a letter arrived. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. Karen. 3 pages. Apologies, explanations, a pitiful plea for forgiveness. I didn't finish reading it. I walked it straight to the trash. Then I stepped outside, cracked a beer, and sat by the river. I never thought I'd get anything good out of that marriage. But I was wrong. It gave me clarity. It gave me purpose. And in the end, it gave me back myself.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.